Do you think that racism in Korea has gotten better over time?
Ooh, racism.
Yes, I think so.
That's a hard question.
I think there's a long way it needs to go still.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Sean. Recently I did a poll on my channel and you guys voted on the topic you wanted to see the most. So today I'm exploring the topic, is South Korea less racist now compared to the past? This was an extremely interesting video and I was so lucky to get a variety of opinions from people from all around the world. Also, because this is a sensitive subject, please be open-minded when watching this video. Please be nice to each other down in the comment section. Also, if you're currently studying English, I highly recommend you join my channel membership. Without further ado, let's begin. Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
Nice to meet you. My name is Jerry and I'm from Nigeria.
What are you doing in Korea?
I'm a model, but I also create content as well.
Definitely check him out on YouTube. So how long have you been in Korea?
I've been living in Korea now for 7 years.
So you've been here 7 years. Do you think that racism in Korea has gotten better over time?
Ooh. Personally, I haven't experienced any. I would say, like with the influx of foreigners coming to Korea, like over the years, I would say it has gotten better, but a lot of people beg to disagree. There's always this community. Southeast Asians like still get discriminated against. If you try to look at things from, like just a broad perspective, like is it racism or like is it like the person is just ignorant,
Right.
type of thing. So take for instance now, like I'm walking and like a Korean comes, oh my god, like you look amazing, I love your skin. Somebody might find that like being racist. For me, I'm like, I don't know, the person is just, I don't know, curious.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I don't try to like overthink things because
yeah.
I'm also like from a very homogeneous society,
Yeah.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
A white man goes to Nigeria, everybody is like all up in his business. They're touching his hair.
It's just different.
Exactly, because it's just different. Would you call that, like racism?
I love your example. Okay, someone goes to Nigeria, a Korean person, a white person, someone from Russia, wherever, and people are just interested, curious, because they're different.
100%.
Not racism.
Not racism. Needless to say, I'm pretty sure racism still happens, but it's not as bad as, let's say, I don't know, 5-6 years ago before, like how you actually blew up.
Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
I'm actually from Atlanta, Georgia.
When was the first time you came to Korea?
October 2019 to November 2020. The last time I was here, that's when the COVID epidemic happened.
What do you do in Korea, can I ask?
Oh yeah, I'm actually in the military.
Sure.
I'm in logistics. The last time I was here versus here, they're more open, like
Yeah.
to people's sexual preference. Like I know Koreans, like they're real, like strict on and conservative on certain things. But
Right.
like the newer generation, I see that they dress more freely. I don't see people being as judgmental. I would say that they have increased just from the last time I was here. That
Really?
they're more acceptable, in my personal opinion. Yeah. I haven't had any big major issues.
Experiences, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say yeah.
Do you feel like comfortable, welcomed here as a foreigner?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Like this is my second time out here, and I was happy to come out here. Even my first experience, like I enjoyed it. So yeah, I definitely would say I haven't had issues. I feel like if you respect the culture and respect the people, that you won't have any issues.
Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
I am from the United States. Yeah, because before there was basically no foreigners, but now that there are, people are getting used to, there's a lot of them out here in Sinchon, so people see them and they get used to them. I mean, maybe there could be a backlash someday of, all these foreigners are, I don't know, taking our jobs, committing crimes. Who knows? Like,
Right.
the pendulum can swing both ways, but at the moment, I'd say that Korea is very much outward looking and very accepting of other countries and other people.
Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
I'm from the US,
Okay. Where in the US?
South Carolina.
Has Korean gotten less racist over the years?
I think there's a long way it needs to go still. I was also here 2 years ago for a month. Because of COVID, there were no foreigners, and so it was a way different experience. And so I think for me, my experience was way better this time. People were staring at me less and kind of were more open to knowing where I'm from. And so I think it has gotten a little bit better since COVID has lightened up. But there's still a lot left to go.
That's a great point. Because of COVID, that made people kind of more closed off because it's a dangerous time. You can't really just trust anybody, and you don't know what country they're coming from. Maybe the pandemic is really bad in that country.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point.
Yes.
Right. Do you have any examples besides that of like you experiencing anything perhaps racist?
Actually, me and my friends went to a cafe one time because it was raining and we wanted to get out of the rain. And the cafe owner told us that no foreigners were allowed.
Was this recently?
It's like 4 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Is that racist?
I would say so.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very discriminatory at least. You know. So we were definitely shocked by it because I had never experienced anything like that before.
Does it happen a lot?
No, it just happened that one time, thankfully. Yeah.
Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
Hi, I'm from Russia.
Do you think Korea is becoming less racist?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Because I can compare.
Yes, tell me.
I was there 4 years ago. I was here. And when I was going like across the street, people were actually staring at me. And they tried to make a photo of me, but secretly. Now it's getting better, but still there are things to fix, I think.
Do you have any examples?
It's, I think, in subway. When you're going to metro and people can like stare at you like this, and they will not be shy. For example, if I can stare to them as well.
Yeah.
And Korean men also can be complicated communication with them, because I'm typical Slovenian girl, and they like this kind of girls, but not for something serious.
In terms of dating, it can be difficult.
Yeah. So if they, for example, if he comes to you and he wants to talk, it will end not like only with talk. It will be one night stand for sure. And for me, it's hard because I want to make friends here, not like relations, but friends, and it's difficult because they see only a picture, not a personality.
Sure. Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?
I'm from Philadelphia in the United States. Really?
I'm from Philadelphia.
Oh, that's crazy.
반갑다. Yeah. What brought you to Korea?
I go to Yonsei Daehagwon, the graduate school for Korean culture and communications.
Cool.
Korean racism and American racism, I think, are really different.
Tell me more.
For example, in Korea, when I'm walking on the trail, there's a lot of older women and they glare at me.
Hiking trail.
Yeah, I go hiking a lot.
Okay.
And also, like, it's very hard to get into an in-group here, but I find that it's easier to get into a group in the US, but the racism is very like overt and like said to your face. Yeah, in the US I think like you're more likely to hear like a slur, but I will say it's harder to integrate into Korea as a foreigner. There is a subtle feeling of you don't belong, especially with like the older generation.
So it's more subtle here.
Yeah, I think it's subtle, but also it's pointed at different people. One of my good friends, they were trying to sell something on Carrot app.
Okay, yeah.
And the person, when they came and saw that she was African American, they didn't want to take it anymore.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is like pretty strong. I don't fit in here, but I'm white, so I have like more privileges here, I think,
You feel that?
than she does. Yeah, like when we go around together, etc.
I think it's very important to define what racism is so we just don't throw it out willy-nilly. I'm not saying you are right now, but societally speaking, what is your definition of racism?
I would say that my definition of racism is like one race thinking that they're superior to another.
That's it.
And kind of looking down on other races for that reason.
100%.
Yeah.
Many Southeast Asian people think Koreans look down on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Koreans feel superior to
them.
Southeast Asian people. That's what people around you have said to you.
That is the Southeast Asians that I've interviewed. And it's like the word of mouth community, social media, you know, like whenever I just go through, you know, like all the stuff, I'm like, okay, like, so yeah.
You know, to be honest, I feel like racism is one of those words where it's almost so loaded these days that it causes more confusion than it does clarification.
Sure.
Yeah, I think rather than using the word, just talk about what you mean. Like if this happens to me all the time, I walk into a shop and the person sees what I look like and they speak to me in English because they assume I probably don't speak Korean.
Right.
Like, is that racist? They're clearly discriminating about me based on my race, but are they discriminating against me? Like, I think it's fine to acknowledge, like, if I don't look Korean, I'm probably not Korean, and there are probably all sorts of other things that are true about me. But categorically saying this group of people are less valuable or worse than the others, I can't support people who do that.
Yeah, right on. No, I totally agree with you. But yeah, I think them judging you, okay, he probably understands English. Whether he's from France, Germany, even maybe Russia, but obviously the US or like UK. I agree, that's probably not racist. And here's the funny thing, 95% of the time, it's true, you don't speak Korean. You said you've been studying Korean for 10 years?
Yeah.
You are a small percentage of people who actually speaks Korean well and lives here. Me too, being I've been here for actually 10 years.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Long time.
So I think we're in the minority.
Yeah.
So when these flash judgments are made upon us, we are the small case where it's actually not true. You go to this wonderful new country, let's just say Japan or Myanmar,
Yeah.
and it's famous for their food, the views, the beach, and you're there for a week. You go there, are you happy if they speak English or not?
Yeah, so I mean that's
Exactly.
funny. Yeah, if it's in Korea, like I frequently wish the English level was worse. But yeah, but then I think about if I go to Japan or Thailand, suddenly I'm like, yeah, please speak English to me. So it's just kind of because I'm here.
As a society, like, are we actually getting like a lot more sensitive to like basic things? You know, like just like I said earlier on, like this is
Definitely some of that.
Yeah, you know, like it's a very homogeneous society, and a lot of it like actually comes from being ignorant.
I think there is racism in Korea, but I also think there's just discrimination, kind of like this feeling of wanting to, be their own country and not, welcome in other countries.
Sure.
But I think it is less of a racist issue, more of a just like not being open to inviting other people in.
In terms of the staring, like at the subway or something, is it possible that, maybe Koreans even stare at each other? It's more okay to stare here, especially older people staring at younger people, staring at perhaps like a girl who's wearing a short skirt. Oh, that's wrong, so let's stare at her, right? How is the staring in Russia? Do people stare at other people or not really?
No, I
Never.
don't think so. Yeah, it's not like never. Of course, old people can stare, or if you wear something very different from like usual clothes, okay, they can stare as well. But here it's more about foreigners. So in Russia, people can stare at each other; they don't care.
How do you know it's
like,
about foreigners though?
Like if they stare about, I don't know. I have a lot of foreign friends who came to Russia, actually, it's also a little bit different because I'm talking about Moscow. Moscow is the capital, big city like Seoul. But if like foreigner comes to some smaller city, of course people will stare. They would try to do it like secretly. But here they are very open. Like, okay, you're a foreigner, I will stare, and I don't care.
Okay. So another important point is, and I have to say it, Jerry, you are tall, you dress well, you're handsome, you're pretty polite, and you're just overall like a nice guy.
You're amazing, Sean. You're amazing.
But it's true, so I think perhaps the experience you have in Korea might be different from someone who is not as handsome as you, perhaps is shorter, in general, let's just say theoretically, like less attractive than you, Do you think that has an influence on the experience you have in Korea?
That is so true. For a second, I actually forgot about my pretty privilege.
Yeah.
I'm not calling myself pretty, but
He's very handsome, okay.
I never really thought about that, but like now that you actually brought it up, because like when I was back in Iksan, honestly, like all I got was compliments from young to like old people, and coming out, like to Seoul, yeah, like it's just compliments upon compliments. So like whenever I go out, which is something I'm actually very grateful for, but then like I totally forgot about like pretty privilege. Let's say like someone that is different from me, like
Just less attractive.
less attractive.
Okay. Let's be real. Yeah.
Yeah, so someone like just less attractive, like not well dressed, not well kept in general.
Yeah.
I would say their experience might actually be very different. Not only like for as a foreigner, but also like as a Korean, in general. Because honestly, like, the way you actually dress, it's the way you'll be addressed in Korea.
People will treat you differently, is what you're saying.
Very, very different.
Yeah. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'm trying to really talk about a real topic here,
Yeah.
The objectively better looking, taller person is probably going to have an easier time, more advantages, more opportunities, perhaps better results in job interviews, perhaps easier to make friends, easier to get dates, There's so many ways we can categorize people. It's not really accurate or fair to just look at race.
That is so true. That is, I 1000% agree with you.
And I'm not trying to take away from anybody's experience who genuinely did experience some form of discrimination, and I never support that. But I am saying that it's just very complicated.
It's very complicated.
Yeah,
Like, there's no
Yeah.
one answer to it, and honestly, Korea has just gotten better like over the years. Like when it just comes to like discrimination, like there is what you experienced like many years ago, just 7 years ago, like is no the same experience you're gonna have now. So yeah.
Cheers to that, man.
Yeah, cheers to that.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this video? If so, please let me know in the comments down below. Once again, I'm Sean, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.